Okay, so we're gonna shift gears quite a bit and leave sort of the research heavy side and go more into application. This also pertains to research. You will be using dependent variables in terms of your research proposals and how you're implementing your studies, but this also goes into everyday application as well. So Gaston Ledford goes into dependent variables in chapter 5. So you guys should be pretty familiar with that term at this point, but your dependent variable is really just your targeted behavior, the behavior you're measuring. You can target a behavior for increase or for decrease. It's not always like a behavior intervention plan for decrease is not always simply a targeted behavior. Targeted behaviors are also measured for increase as well. The most important aspect of a targeted behavior is a clear operational definition, meaning that the behavior has to be observable and measurable. Your operational definition should signal to any observer what that behavior looks like and when it's occurring or when it's not occurring. There's something called the dead man's law. Pretty much it states that if a dead person can do it, it's not a behavior that can be measured. So, a really great example of that is noncompliance. A lot of people would like to target noncompliance, but depending on how you define noncompliance, that may not pass the dead man's law. So, a lot of people will just say, oh, the child's being noncompliant, they're not doing what I'm telling them to do. Well, what does that look like? Is that hitting, kicking? Is that stating no? Is that getting up and walking away? Is it not performing the exact match of the instruction given within a certain amount of time? You have to be very specific when you're defining those targeted behaviors. There's linked here a really great resource for 9 common behaviors and operational definitions. I suggest bookmarking it. I use it in my everyday life, but it goes through crying, screaming tantrums, off-task behaviors, elopement, property destruction, aggressions, and it actually goes into noncompliance. The examples that they give are noncompliance is occurred. Noncompliance is defined as any occurrence of saying no, I don't want to, I won't do it, or not now to any academic or non-academic request. So really clear, we know exactly what that child is doing when they're engaging in quote unquote noncompliance. Another really great definition of noncompliance that I actually use pretty frequently, noncompliance is defined as any response that does not match the delivered instruction within X amount of seconds from the time the instruction was delivered. So again, really clear. The child needs to engage in the exact response that the instruction was given, and it has to occur within 5 seconds, within 10 seconds, etc. So again, just a really great resource. I do use it often. So behaviors can be reversible and non-reversible. Gaston Ledford defines what that means. There's a table, table 5.2 uses shows you examples of those and then matches appropriate research designs to those. So within our studies, there are certain targeted behaviors that are considered reversible, meaning that once an intervention has occurred, when we stop that intervention and see if the behavior is long-lasting, the behavior reverses. It goes back to baseline states, typically, without the intervention in place. So an example of that would be problem behaviors. Typically, when you take out your behavior intervention, the behavior will increase again. So that's a reversible behavior. Non-reversible behaviors are behaviors that remain constant even without intervention, following intervention. Examples of those would generally be like academic tasks. So we put an intervention in place to teach multiplication. Intervention goes away. We still know multiplication. So those are examples of reversible and non-reversible. Again, Gaston Ledford, table 5.2 explains that in more depth. And then the really important thing with behaviors and to take note of is that behaviors occur at a point in time or for a duration of time. That will help us guide our appropriate data collection methods.